This is generally just interesting to look. I watch this guy occasionally, not just right now, but in general, because like he analyzes. That's the word. Like debates and shit. And it's really good. It's really good. It is really good. Of course, it's also Charlie Kirk related, but he usually does a really good job in like looking at debates and shit. It's really good. Yeah. Charlie Kirk debates with a man who today is celebrating his deletion by Warren Smith. We'll look at that. We'll look at that.
A few months ago, Charlie Kirk engaged in a debate with a man who would later celebrate his death.
This is the man who is due to be the president of an association that is committed to free speech.
And this is not just a man.
Imagine that, right? The people that are supposed to, you know, protect free speech are the people celebrating free speech being gone. That's so interesting.
You've seen him online. He's debated this man. He's spoken to this man.
I noticed something that I had not seen before.
I never went to university. I take that as a great compliment. So therefore, everyone who went to university should be able to run circles around me. You'll be the judge, but I'll do my best.
Spoiler alert, they are not able to run circles around Charlie.
It's interesting, right? He essentially just came in, right? As somebody who never went to college, he came in and basically said, challenged them to argue. Challenge them to argue. I find that very interesting. Not gonna lie, Charlie was a pretty good debater.
The exact opposite.
I must caution you. Entertainment is on this side for you. Education is on this side.
It's one of the most prestigious colleges in the world, and Charlie Kirk brought that place down to its knees. It's been in the news because of the head of its debate society, these comments he made.
Including Charlie Kirk got shot, let's effing go, and here he is promoting violence.
To effectively create change in the world we desire. Inside Prop will argue that at times there is simply nothing else that can be required other than violent retaliation.
When is that warranted? It's the second portion that really exposes his motivation.
Yeah, that is the thing.
This is a view I wholeheartedly agree with. The view that some institutions are too broken, too aggressive, too oppressive to be reformed.
He's aiming at his own society, here and now.
Like cancers of our society, they must and they should be taken down by any means necessary.
Remember, by any means necessary literally means shoot people. Take people to life by any means necessary. Always remember what that means.
Any means necessary would logically include violence. People are like, how is this the guy in charge of open debate at Oxford?
This House believes that Trump has...
That is because you're arguing with people from the UK. The UK currently, as it stands right now, has an authoritarian government, as it stands right now, due to the internet censorship, due to the Child Safety Act, Online Safety Act. That is unrefutable.
Has gone too far.
His rhetoric has deepened hostility among family, friends, and everyday people, making Americans who once saw family and community see enemies.
I now look to Laura Smith to close the case for the proposition.
So this professor stands up and delivers her opening monologue, and then Charlie has a chance to counter it. This is what it looks like when we cut the two statements side by side. Charlie just...
Fentanyl. It's racing across the border. We gotta stop it. It's dangerous. How much fentanyl comes across the Canadian-US border? 0.01%. I'm sorry, that's wrong. Less than 0.01% comes across the US-Canadian border.
The professor failed to mention that the Canadian border was closed. President Trump said fentanyl, and the amount of terrorists that are coming across the Canadian border, of which the most terrorists that come into America come across the Canadian border on the terrorist watch list.
Yeah, notice she just left out the whole portion about terrorism.
Finally, Professor.
Of course she leaves that out, because she doesn't know that, because, well, she never looked into it. Remember, this is a college professor. This is a college professor.
Professor, you never heard of it in South Africa. Interesting. You never heard of that.
Her face here, she looks, she's trying to act more confident than she is, but notice her starting to drink water here because she's feeling the heat.
Another really interesting thing I find about Donald Trump and his use of power and deportation and immigration policies creating the crisis, he seems to be really fixated on a potential genocide in South Africa against white South Africans. Nobody else has really heard of this.
Kill the poor, the farmer.
And yet, white South Africans...
Yes. Surprise, surprise. That is a thing. Potentially. That is a thing. Have you heard about the Christian stuff that happens in Africa too, by the way? Also, I find it funny. People always want to bring up deportation as like one of the worst points that Trump does. Obama deported like 3 million people. Just food for thought. That man was not innocent when it comes to deportation. The only reason why people keep ignoring that, how many people were actually deported, is because, well, he's black.
No, thank you. You'll get your chance, Mr. Kirk.
You're a political science professor at Oxford. This is someone who's willing to make claims about Donald Trump lying about South Africa without even taking the time to research what is happening in South Africa.
You never heard of it in South Africa. Interesting. You never heard of that. The fact that a major political party in South Africa says, quote, kill the Boers, kill the Boers. I would expect more of somebody who wrote a dissertation and teaches here at Oxford to say that you would not know about the attempted slaughter and genocide of white South Africans.
So now let's look at this debate when Charlie did stand across the table from this guy.
Do you see this generation of Lost Boys as a failure of, like, say, masculinity?
There's an irony here. This is especially difficult to watch because in this debate, Charlie is fighting for men just like the guy who killed him, and he didn't even know it.
Are there, like, any other reasons as to why this generation of Lost Boys might exist, or do you basically attribute it to
I acknowledge all of that, of course. And one of them, it's a very good faith question, thank you.
I've seen Charlie do this so many times. When someone asks him a question in good faith, he points it out. It's like he would match the incoming.
True. He matches the energy that comes in, right? He matches the incoming energy. That's usually not that he does that all the time when it's a good one.
Energy. And he could be firm when needed.
The largest of all of them is the cultural and the educational that has infantilized men and hyper-feminized them.
As we get more evidence, it seems to...
Oh, agreed. I would even say that, hot take, I think Gen Z as a whole is slightly infantilized. Not just slightly, quite infantilized, actually. I've noticed that, because I feel like our generation had like the helicopter parents. Much more so. It's just that.
Be indicating that the guy who killed Charlie Kirk was a young man captured by an ideology, struggling with his masculinity for sure.
Yeah, in what way has the education system infantilized men?
I mean, every possible way.
What's bad about feminine men? I don't see the issue. The issue is this, that in a war scenario, which is not unlikely, which side is going to win? The side with masculine men? Because this is a real issue. The side with masculine men or the side with feminine men? You can also just ignore the war side, right? Crime. Who is more likely to defend somebody? A feminine man or a masculine man? That's like the question, right? That's like the problem. If you throw off these balances, it gives bad actors the opportunity to do evil. Because there's nobody defending. That's the core problem. You should be able to. The problem is just that you should be able to in a perfect society. That doesn't really help, though.
From the hypermedication of young men, from in the core curriculum in America, we learn about toxic masculinity.
It's so ironic because when we cut back to the professor Charlie was debating, the Oxford professor, she was doing just this.
And Andrew Jackson ignored it. Why? Because he was living in the democracy of the white man.
The democracy of the white man, which is exactly what this guy is claiming needs to be burned down by any means necessary.
Thank God.
Where do you think democracy originated from? That didn't originate in Africa. That didn't really originate in Asia. As tough as it may sound, democracy really originated in Europe.
We no longer live in the democracy of the man, although I do notice a bit of a gender divide here, which may reflect the support that Donald Trump has and that gender divide of his own.
We never talk about toxic...
Of course there's a gender divide. That makes sense. Because we have sidelined men. And the men would rather go to the side that says, hey, actually, we're going to make things better for you. That makes sense.
Femininity. Do you agree that there's toxic femininity as well?
I mean, I think it's an unfair double standard.
Why?
Yeah, there is. It's misandry, right? It's misandry. The thing is, nobody talks about it.
How can femininity not be toxic if masculinity can?
I'm not saying they can't be.
Do we teach kids about toxic femininity in our schools? No, tell me yes or no.
I mean, I think that they come from two very different places. I think toxic masculinity comes from a level of misogyny, where I think toxic femininity often comes from a reaction to a misogynistic system, which fundamentally...
So what's the word? So the justification for being a piece of shit is because others were a piece of shit. Technically, right? I don't see that as a particular good justification. Sorry. Interesting. The amount of misandry online that is ignored, by the way, for no reason, it's just crazy.
Mentally oppresses and systematically oppresses women.
According to his logic, the system must be destroyed.
Some institutions are too broken, too aggressive, too oppressive to be reformed. Like cancers of our society, they must and they should be taken down by any means necessary.
It's the conflation of what actually is evil. You've got to be careful about how you direct that aim.
And I'm not saying that toxic femininity is a good thing, but I'm saying it's a much more understood and valid reaction to a system of oppression.
It's not a good thing, but
a system of oppression. See, the problem is with the system of oppression thing is this. Women have been able to vote for quite some time. Almost as long as men, in fact. We've seen no change whatsoever in that system of oppression, right? We have seen no change, which makes you believe, is it really a system of oppression? Because also women profit from this system, so-called system of oppression. I act femboy from time to time, and I'm bisexual and own weapons, but I also know how to man up, live in an unfair world. I don't complain to my elders if I mess up. Right? That's the thing. But if you have just, demasculinize all men, which is a current attempt in doing so, we will have problems. You don't fall into that category. I don't fall into that category. But there's many men who, right? We have had many instances now of security footage showing how a woman was assaulted and attacked and men were just watching. I don't think that's normal.
It is understandable because it's fighting back against oppression. Well, where are we seeing that?
Versus toxic masculinity, which oppresses.
Okay. So even if I grant you that, are they teaching toxic? Is that term ever been used in a school that you know of?
What term?
No. Not that I'm aware.
Toxic femininity?
No, it's not.
Oh, that's weird. How does that sound to a dock worker in Brighton or someone in Essex? We need to make things more feminine? No. Okay. Instead, we need to restore the balance that God created man and women. And right now, they're in. By the way, you want an example? Adolescence. How does that movie Adolescence not broadly generalize a theme that, first of all,
yeah, people were like praising that movie, and I looked at that movie, right, and I was like, how often does that genuinely happen? Like, I look at that movie, and I was like, how often does that genuinely happen, where a kid goes down this, like, Andrew Tate pipeline? That doesn't often happen. In fact, children that age don't even consume, really, Andrew Tate. These are, like, freshly, like, 16 at max. These are more, like, 17, 18, like, early 20s type of guys that consume his content. Like, right? Or like these red pill dudes. So that doesn't even fall into, like, the movie does not portray reality at all.
Doesn't exist. Secondly, is like a slow motion, like humiliation ritual for the young boys of Britain.
So eerie to hear this now, because that's exactly what happened to the guy who killed Charlie.
I don't think adolescence is a generalization. We're not saying that every young boy in the UK is like this. We're not saying every young boy goes through this process. It's an example of what can happen when people fall into this kind of media. I think it's like, and it's more of a story or a warning to what can happen to people that, you know, fall into these bubbles, who don't find the help that they necessarily need, that can turn violent.
The irony.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, the problem with this argument is that help isn't offered, right? That help isn't offered. Most men the truth is that most men or boys can't go anywhere if they struggle. They can't. By default, they can't. Most can't. I mean, there have been plenty of stories where boys went to get help because they were assaulted and they were looked at weird. Like, what are you doing here? Like, that there is no help for boys. None at all. So I don't see that argument. You cannot get help if there's no way you can get help. It's like somebody telling you to report something to the police when there's no police station close by. That makes no sense.
Is that it's the reality was the exact opposite to the narrative being pushed in adolescence.
Do you think men will be generally happier if they're married, providing, and have children?
I don't think that.
Go back. Again.
Men will be generally happier if they're married, providing, and have children.
I agree. Yes. I do think so. Yes. Not everyone, right? Not everyone. But I do think that the vast majority, I'd say yes. The vast majority, yes. So here's the kicker, right? It's about purpose, right? What basically Kirk is arguing here is it's purpose, right? It is purpose. It is having a purpose. When I talk to other people, when I look at myself and I'm like, the most miserable time in my life was when I had no trouble, but I also had no purpose. Like, not having anything to exist for is detrimental to any human. And I think that if men had families, not only would that give them a purpose, that would significantly lower the self-deletion rate. Significantly lower the self-deletion rate.
I don't think that's a necessary factor to contribute to this happiness.
What is your solution to bring about male happiness in the West? Mine is men get married, have children, and provide. What is yours?
That's a good question.
Bro's flabbergasted. But it's true. Purpose. And that is an easy solution to purpose. That is, I mean, when we look at happiness, when we look at like right, we can measure happiness. The society with men having no purpose is one of the most depressing societies. They want to always bring up Scandinavia as like, right, the peak of human happiness, right? People are so happy. A lot of people in Scandinavian countries are on antidepressants. That's certainly not normal.
Just the image here, the juxtaposition could not be more different.
I think an affirmation of their emotions, their emotional states.
We've tried that.
How do you apply that?
That is a whole lot of nothing. Affirmation of their emotions. That is a whole lot of nothing. That is a whole... You're saying a whole lot of nothing. Big words. What does that mean? What does that look like? Concretely, what does that look like?
To someone who's feeling something invalid, not all behavior is good. It's not all malleable.
An openness to allowing men to express themselves in whichever way they want, even if that is...
But they can. That's the thing, right? Men can. Gender nonconformity. I mean, look at Jeffree Star. Look at some other not so nice figures, but they still do it, right? Men have the opportunity to do whatever they want, but they're not happier. In fact, actually, it might be worse than it has ever been.
In a more effeminate way, or a Western, typically effeminate way.
With all due respect, have you been to London the last 10 years? Men can do whatever they want.
I live in...
Are they happier? Men can dress how they want. Men can act how they want. You can go to any club. Has it worked?
Yeah, but also we've had austerity.
It has not worked. It has not worked. The sewer slide rates are going up, not down. They're going up. I don't have a traditional family to provide for. My purpose is to help my neighbors, and that provides me purpose. Yeah, right. Like, taking care of something, right? Finding something that you genuinely enjoy and can you put your heart in, right? Even that can give you purpose. I think what Kirk is mostly here arguing is that this is the most easiest way. Well, not most easiest, but it is a good way to have a purpose, is having a family, right? That is what he's essentially arguing here.
Austerity being similar to poverty, claiming it's economic.
You're scrambling for an excuse to get away from the truth that's right in front of you. So I would just ask you to think over the next couple days, months, or years, why is it that men in countries that barely have toilets and do not have 2 pounds to rub together, but they do have kids and they do have a wife, are much happier than someone with a big flat in downtown London? Something to think about.
I mean, I think happiness is not...
True. True. Hot take. I think depression, and I mean like medically, right? On a medical term, might be, when we look at the data, a first world problem, a Western problem that does not occur in, well, yeah, not just Western, but first world problem, right? That does not occur in non-first world countries as much. I know this is a hot take, but I think it might be due to purposelessness, right? We took out the traditional family, that's gone, right? Even though when we look at statistics, we know that significantly more men. They did a statistic of like ranking what's least important, what's most important, right? For like people voting Democrat and like people voting Republican, right? In the US. And the highest one was having children for men. On both. Like on both. Which is interesting. And for men on both political aisles. While it was quite low on both for women, which is interesting. A little higher on Republican women. But yeah. That should give you an idea. I think most men would want still would want a classic family. Not all, of course, not all. Others want to do different things, have different purposes. Want to do something else, right? But I think most men still genuinely want families.
Difficult to conflate in that sense. I mean,
On
there
top
are
of
other
suicide,
duties.
they're less likely to kill themselves. Forget all these happiness indexes. If you kill yourself, you're not happy, right? So
True. If you take antidepressants, you're also not happy, no matter how high that index is. We know this. Right? So yeah, we took traditional right. We took traditional families out of, like, we completely annihilated the family unit, right? Completely. That doesn't exist anymore. Realistically, that's dead. Even though people are trying to restore it, that's really dead. And then we have right, we took religion also out of the picture, right? No God. Right? So we don't have that one either, which people had a purpose for as well, right? The only thing that has like filled that weird gap is politics. And we've seen recently where that went. Not good. We could show that it's not good. Because this man is no longer alive because they shot him over his opinions. Crazy.
these poor countries do not have male suicide problems. Why?
Because if you have something you need to live for, no matter how bad shit gets, you know that you need to live for these people, right? If you have a family, you need to live for them. If you have a pet, you need to live for it. If you have right, if you have like people that depend on you, you need to live for them. But nowadays, especially for men, that is no longer given. A lot of us young men, we go to work and we play video games. That is our life. Occasionally, we may end up drunk with people that we can't really consider as our friends. That is really it. That is really it. And of course, if you do nothing, eventually gonna end up feeling nothing.
I do not know.
Think about it. Thank you very much.
Just make no mistake, that shooter, in a way, similar to suicide. He was throwing his life away. He might get the death penalty. So it's eerie.
I'm pretty sure he will. Apparently some big figure was also arguing for a firing squad. So yeah, and he thought about ending it all because he didn't want to go to prison. That's not wrong. That makes sense.
To see Charlie addressing that very thing directly here, months prior to his death, and standing across from the table is a man who would go on to celebrate his murder.
That's the video. I think that truly a really big issue is that, first of all, this man learned essentially nothing from this. As we later know, as we now know, this man learned nothing from this encounter. And I gotta say that Charlie, it was quite good at what he was doing, quite good at debating, quite good in what he was working at. It's gonna be sad to not see him again. Not gonna lie. Truly. And he's right. It all comes down, essentially, really comes down to purpose. And without purpose, you're really just, you're cooked. You're fucked. You're fucked. The worst time is when you have nothing to do. When you have nothing to worry about, when there's nothing you need to work for. I mean, we can literally look at stuff, right? We can literally look, right? All throughout history, we had like a, what's the word? There was something going on, even historically, where you could say, that is something worth defending, that is something worth, right? As bluntly as it sounds, right? Wars. Wars are not good, obviously. We know wars are not good. Wars are terrible. But it gave people, as harshly as it sounds, a purpose, right? Like, fuck the French, fuck the English, fuck the Germans. You get the idea, right? That was a thing. People were devoted to religion, which gave them a purpose, right? That was still a thing. And communities. One thing I haven't mentioned is communities. That is also no longer a thing, right? Because like communities, like outside of like big cities are dying because everyone moves into these big cities, but people aren't really interacting in these. We all, how do I put this? We don't live with each other. We live next to each other. If that makes sense. And I think that's also a big issue. We are no longer living with each other. We are living next to each other, and that's not good. That is not good. Yeah. Just food for thought. Anyways, like, comment, and subscribe.